and welcome to our session today. The session is titled The Power of Peers. My name is Michelle Dames, Dr. Michelle Dames. I have to get used to saying that. I work here at Tallahassee Community College as the Assistant Director for the Center for Professional Enrichment, the CPE, and I have a background in instructional design. Before coming to TCC, I was an instructional designer at Austin Community College, and I also worked in teaching technology services at the University of South Carolina. I also have a lot of teaching experience in person and online, and I am also a Quality Matters certified peer reviewer. I welcome your questions, if you have any, during the presentation, and I'd like to make it a little bit interactive as much as we can in this setting. So feel free to ask questions or interact with me at any point, because that's what this is all about, interaction and sharing with each other. So we're going to discuss the benefits of peer support in an online environment, touch on some different types of models and some tips for collaborative learning. So the peer model, let's see if I can hide this. Yep. It's an intentional relationship. We're going to make a decision to work together and understand each other. Otherwise, we're just existing in this space together without a clear decision or intention to work together. So if we are putting things into place to make sure that we're collaborating, we're going to be more successful than just if we build it, they will collaborate without any additional structures. We want to set up a place and also support it so that people can understand each other, appreciate how we are alike, support transformation and growth, and create this hope and optimism between equals. So instead of we're all in the same boat in a negative way, it's more we're all on the same boat in the same journey going to the same place, moving through a shared experience together and working together, giving back, helping each other to succeed. So again, this intentional relationship. I hit next, but it's not going to next. Here we go. So social interactions amongst peers has been proven to improve conceptual understanding and engagement, and in turn, increase course performance and completion rate. So I noted a couple of different research studies where they've actually proven that students do complete their courses at a higher level if there is more social interaction among the peers. So, show of hands. Who in here and online likes to cook? You do. Who likes to stay out of the kitchen? I am raising my hand. I am very lucky that I have a husband that likes to cook. Who likes to read? All right, 2 hands up in this room. I do like to read. I enjoy going to book clubs and discussing books. And I imagine there's a lot of people out there who maybe just would rather wait for the movie. Anybody like football game in this town? Patricia's hand is up. Like the football games? I will admit that my hand is up because I still don't fully understand football. I know it's trying to get to one side of the field and moving, but there's a lot of rules. Who has a pet? I have a very cute little cat that I love, curled up this morning and looking cute on the bed. Anybody have multiple pets? I think a friend of mine has 7, but is fostering, so that's a full house. Who here thinks they've traveled the farthest? No? I've been to Europe, but I was a kid, I haven't been as an adult. Yeah. So maybe we've both been to Europe. And so, yeah, it sounds like maybe we're more inclined to stay at home. Recently. So we're connecting with each other in these ways and trying to find some common ground. And when we connect with each other, we felt a little bit engaged. We made eye contact, we smiled, we nodded. And a lot of people say that work at school is not engaging for them. And when you are engaged in life, you will have more positive emotions, which translate to an upward spiral of other positive things. So we're creating this nice supportive environment among peers so that they can support each other, have positive emotions, and that will be contagious, and it'll grow. Even that little simple exercise, I think we both laughed, we both smiled, and we enjoyed it. Even though, there's not a huge amount of people, we interacted more with each other. And in a way, it's a bit of a game. And there's been a lot of great research about games. Games can be beneficial because people love to be engaged and challenged, and they're more likely to collaborate when they're faced with a common goal to overcome. People can look at the challenges that they face in their daily lives as a type of problem they need to solve with a strategy. And what's great about Jay McGonigal, and this is one of her best-selling books, is that she talks about gaming with education and also with some struggles that she's had on her own. So she had a concussion and wasn't able to fully use her brain. She had to recover from a serious medical condition, and every day she would try to reach a new level. And she created these little games and these little power-ups, she calls them, to make herself feel better, whether it was going for a walk, eating a piece of chocolate. She would create a list of things that made her feel better, and then the more she did those, the more points she got. So it was really a fascinating way to deal with a challenge that she had in her life. So when we bring people together and participate in collaborative learning, it becomes a consensus among the members of a community of knowledgeable peers. Knowledge is a social construct. We're all coming together. The student is the primary focus. Interaction and doing are significant. And working with peers is really a key part of this. When we sync up, again, this is great research from Jay McGonigal, we like each other more. We connect. We offer more help. We ask for more help. We have more empathy and compassion. And we perform better on cooperative tasks. There's a famous Soviet psychiatrist from the late 1800s, Vygotsky. And he talks about social interaction playing a fundamental role in the development of cognition. The idea that the potential for cognitive development actually depends upon this zone of proximal development. It's a level of development attained when children engage in social behavior. So this zone has been defined as the distance between the actual developmental level as determined by independent problem solving. So what can I do by myself? And then the level of potential development as determined through problem solving under adult guidance or under a situation of collaboration with your peers. So as you grow and connect, that when you're in this zone for a particular task, providing the appropriate assistance will give a student enough of a boost to achieve additional tasks. Together we can achieve more. So we're encouraging critical thinking and problem solving, self-reflection, and co-construction of knowledge and meaning. So when we talk about setting professional standards, you want to have a helpful and welcoming classroom. Nobody who teaches should be the teacher that has the t-shirt that says, "It's on the syllabus, don't ask me." The whole idea is to ask questions and get answers and share those answers. None of us remember every single thing all of the time. We need reminders, we need help. We want to interact with each other. We want to set the example for a helpful and welcoming classroom. You're expected to interact with your colleagues when you work full-time. You should be expected to interact with your peer students. You want to set an example and show format, good language, guide them through professional examples instead of always correcting. Lead by example instead of pointing out the mistakes. We also want to look at higher order learning skills and make sure that we're hitting those higher level of Bloom's taxonomy. You have to work with these other people, real-world experience and accountability. It makes you, as a student, makes your students that you're teaching more marketable. You don't want your students' first collaborative experience to be at their job where they might stumble. If you help them build the skills now, structures approaches to developing these solutions to real-world problems and incorporate them into the learning, then they'll be better prepared when they have to work together on all sorts of projects in the work environment. These connections are going to make them feel less isolated. Exchanging and discussing ideas, through exchanging and discussing their own ideas, they're going to develop further ideas. Collaboration breeds better work. As you review other people's work, you see your response compared to others, and you think, well, what could I do to make mine better? I think there's some competition and some healthy exchange, whereas if you're just working by yourself, you don't always see others' perspectives. This generation that is in college, the majority of the students between 19 and 30 are naturally social and collaborative. 88 texts a day. I'm not sure how that's possible. That seems like a lot of text in a day. And they're inclined to work together on large projects. They're inclined to connect. They're inclined to share. So this will come naturally to them. Especially because community college students are part-time. They're going to feel alone. If they work together, they will feel more connected. They can establish new friendships. Confidence is going to breed positive results and retention. If they have a friend that they're working with who checks in on them, they're more likely to return to class, they're more likely to complete their assignments, they're more likely to be successful. We're enhancing their personal and professional skills, and they're not learning in a bubble. Students do not learn well when they're isolated receivers of knowledge. Peers helping peers. The peers are going to provide much needed support. Think back to your own schooling. Did you read every single word of every single reading that was assigned to you in school? Maybe if you work together with your peers, you can break down the chapters, take notes, share a study sheet, come up with questions. It's going to help you with procrastination. When you're in a study group, meeting at scheduled times, having to post online, you can keep the active students active. You have to show up for your fellow students. There's some accountability. So it helps with procrastination if you have to prepare something for somebody else. Individuals in these study groups are less likely to delay or put off assignments because they understand that other people are relying on them. You're going to understand and absorb information more efficiently. Students tend to work faster in a group than if they're working alone. If a student is working on their own, there's a lot of time wasted, procrastination, but also just sort of puzzling over, what do I do next? How do I get over this hurdle? But when students work in groups, they can immediately start fleshing that out. They can review the material, they can exchange ideas, they can disagree or reason with one another, and get those ideas out of their head. Instead of just ruminating over them, they can start to have a discussion and move them to the next level. Understand why one person's answer is different from someone else's. They can seek clarification and learn faster in a group setting while gaining personal communication skills as well. They're going to get a lot of different perspectives and have a nice celebration of diversity, hopefully, because every person is coming to it with their own ideas and their own qualities, and they offer that to the group. Studying by yourself will always get you just, your own perspective, yet in groups you get various viewpoints, and that can assist you in helping you reach your own conclusions. Listening and asking questions gives you more food for thought and develops your own critical thinking skills. Working together also reduces learner anxiety. Test anxiety is horrible, and a lot of students have it. They've been tested their whole lives, and yet it's still something that they get very nervous about. There's a lot of concern, worry, fear. Some students blank out. So anxiety can interfere with their learning and test taking, and their grades can be seriously affected. But if you're in a study group with motivated classmates and you're going through the materials and you're also talking to others about how they're anxious, you can improve your student performance on tests and in classroom discussions. You're also going to develop new skills. Other students will show you how they approach it and how they study. Joining the study group offers you some more information about different study methods and how you can incorporate them into your regiment. Oh, you're using note cards. You made a list of all the key words. Well, can we share that key list? How do we work together? Peers can help ease your social isolation. There's a lot of research that talks about the power of peers. The strongest single source of influence on cognitive and affective development is the student's peer group. It has enormous potential for influencing virtually all aspects of the student's educational and personal development. And especially in groups that have more in common, such as Latino students, they reported that college peers provided the most support in their first year over school supports and teachers. Fellow students were the ones that provided the most support in their first year. Students that were interviewed, University of Colorado Boulder, were asked, how can we improve the learning environment? And would you believe that their answer was encourage or require study groups? They said by talking to each other, they get to teach the content to their peers and also gain assistance from their peers. Creating the community itself is a motivational factor in learning. Students must know what the group knows, that's just a group knows, in order to make a contribution to it. So when we're talking about working together, I think about some different angles, three in particular. One is this sort of individual sharing, and then there's curriculum-based, and the individual and curriculum sort of coming together. And there's pros and cons to each one of these. I would say that the individual sharing is usually going to be the instructor asking each student for a summary. And this could be redundant if everyone is summarizing the same thing. So you want to be careful to give unique assignments and have students approach different angles of a topic and not just everyone summarizing chapter 1. So when you ask for this, you can also ask for recent successes and obstacles. What did you find confusing? What was the muddiest point? And then share this with the class as a whole. What the students get then is a wide variety of information from everyone in the class But what's great is it's a wide variety, but each one is at a deep level because the students each had a more specific assignment than just chapter 1. They had to explain a concept. And then each student gets this great, rich knowledge about one concept, but then can look at what everyone else in the class did too. The pros of this, besides what I just mentioned, is that students can talk about hurdles they're facing. Maybe they don't understand the concept they were assigned. Maybe they can get help from others. But they're all going to feel like they're sharing the knowledge in this space together. The curriculum-based, the cons. Let me talk about the cons of individual sharing. If everyone's not comfortable sharing their struggles, that can be hard. If people don't understand their concepts, they don't know where to go with it, that can be tricky. It can take time to establish some trust with the other group members. And if you have regular check-in times, that can help, and make sure that there's some deadlines so that everyone is sharing and has all the information they need before there's any sort of assessments. So it can be good to have something like these individual sharings spaced out. So breaking down a chapter, breaking down some concepts, and having a different group of students having something due each class or each week as the semester goes along. So the curriculum-based is going to be more task-based and activities where the student's going to not necessarily share individually, but contribute to the topic. So one example I have of this is Bloom's Taxonomy. I had my students do fairy tales. So they had to come up with fairy tales lessons on Bloom's Taxonomy. So, for example, let's think of a fairy tale. Three Goldilocks, maybe, Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So the student would understand Bloom's Taxonomy and then teach it to another student using the fairy tale as an example. How would you evaluate the 3 different beds? Right, so in Goldilocks and the Three Bears, isn't it one bed soft, one bed hard, one bed in the middle, or one porridge is cold, one porridge is hot? I'm not remembering all my fairy tales. But how would you evaluate those? So the students are coming up with a way to teach it to their peers. The individual and the curriculum, it's going to be a mix. It's going to give you flexibility to move in either direction. The student gets to share individual ideas, but then they get to collaborate as well. Let's see here. If you give your ownership to your participants, the more rules you can let they come up with. So anything that they share, anything that they come up with. So if you have a discussion board, letting your students come up with the rules, crowdsourcing them, have a document where they can all put together the rules. How would you want to see this work? If they have ownership, if they understand that this is something that they created, they're going to feel more invested in it. It's going to work as a motivational factor and increase participation. And if they're creating this safe space, they'll feel more inclined to share, especially the quieter students. So thinking more about some ideas, stumping your partner, which would be creating a challenging question for your peers from the material. And this is where students can get rather competitive. So they really want to come up with a good question that impresses their fellow students. Debating, this comes back to the idea of the gaming. If they have different positions and they want to win or they want to make their point heard more, so assigning different positions for the students to discuss. Case studies are always great because they bring situations to a more realistic place where students can understand them. So in a student success course, for example, case studies are really terrific because sometimes students don't see what's getting in their own way, but if they read a scenario about a student who is having trouble with time management, They can clearly see how that student should make different decisions, and then hopefully when they propose smart solutions for that student, they understand that I could apply these to myself. Maybe I shouldn't watch TV for 2 hours before my paper is due. Maybe I should get started on it as I am recommending for the case study to do. Creating the quiz is great, and I actually would allow my students to create quiz questions for the whole class. So you could have them create quizzes for other groups, and then you could also have them come up with questions for the final test, or you could pick questions from the final test from the questions that they're coming up with for the groups. Timelines are really great. You can display events sequentially, chronologically. How did these pieces fit together? Also flowcharts, and that's also a good example with a case study. If the person does this, then what happens next? How do we get to a better result? A narrative to explain a topic. That's a little bit like my Bloom's Taxonomy fairy tale. If every student is explaining this topic, if every student's doing a paragraph, excuse me, they're working together and building this knowledge and explaining something piece by piece, and everyone has a little ownership, and then it all comes together into a bigger narrative. And visual can be great too. So I've had students do this with pictures and with videos, and then build the explanation for a concept like motivation. Can you put together a page of pictures and have each student bring what motivation means to them, and then they're inspired by each other's explanations? Some other ideas that I've used in having my students collaborate. What did it take for you to be successful in this class? What tips would you give to students taking this class next semester? And then what I do is I show that to the class next semester. And they get to see right from students that were successful telling them, don't fall behind on this project, or make sure you get an early start on that. Or if you have any questions, please ask, because she'll tell you what you need to know, and don't be afraid to ask. So students have responded really well to that. Crowdsourcing review sheets, online office hours, letting the students fill out the review sheets and get them actually peer-reviewed by each other so they can collaborate on them. Building any sort of website or e-portfolio, again, that sort of goes back to breaking down with the individual sharing of the content, having them put together this big resource where they can all share. Reviewing each other's assignments, activities. Can you proofread this for me? Can you give me feedback? And I do use a lot of blogs and wikis as well. I like having the students share individually and then, of course, commenting on each other's. Any activities you've used or some familiar plans?
Wikis.
No, wikis. And what do you do with your wikis?
Collaborate by editing and so forth and so on.
All right. So by bringing people together, they're going to feel less alone. And students with family and friend support, and actually older students, were more motivated. Independent learners were not more determined online students. They actually might have felt more alone. Students proved more successful if they felt invested in the work and they saw that the community and the instructor shared a common goal. Again, we're all in the same boat, going to the same place and rowing together to get there. So here you can see that at the top level, each mouse is faced with a challenge in front of them. And they literally can't see how to get to the other side. But when they come together and collaborate and get to a higher ground, they can see the bigger picture, come up with a plan, and navigate it together. So some of these we've touched on already, but we'll discuss them a little bit more. It's really important to get this going right away. There should be no hesitation with building community. It should start, even if you can, before the class with an orientation. When you have students working together, you do want to change up the groups. You want them to meet different people. The more people they meet, the more they're more likely to find someone they connect with. Obviously, we're using asynchronous tools so that people can contribute on the times that are best for them. Meaningful evaluations, lots of examples. I tend to show every assignment, ideally, an A, a B, and a C example, especially with writing. I want to show lots of examples so that they understand the expectations. I want to be a part of their groups, not necessarily as active as they are, of course, but I want to make sure that I am praising them, letting them know that they're connecting with each other in a good way, and also defining the norms and being a good example and having a safe environment, atmosphere, model responses, replying to every student. This is, I admit it is very time consuming, but I think it provides a huge amount of value, because if they are out there and they don't see that anyone else has responded, that could be discouraging. So if the students see you recognizing them, that can make all the difference. Talked a little bit about letting them make the rules, but making sure that you're guiding them. You want to be consistent, present, available. Lots of low-stakes activities early on, and then build to more serious assignments. Clear rubrics and grading. Consider peer evaluation as a percentage, maybe not as everything. Journals and reflections can be really great. I like these as public, but also as private. I've had weekly journals in my student success courses, and my students will share more online in that private space than they will in the other spaces. So that can be really helpful. They'll ask questions that they might not have asked in the public space. So that can be really a great space for them. All right, there's some of the things that I referenced. I did bring, and I will have my handout if you want to. And I also have a neat little annotated bibliography that I did. And this talks about motivation. And as long as we're recording, I'll just read it. Just as a little bonus. So excuse me, I don't have any visuals, but hopefully this will be somewhat interesting. It's an annotated bibliography review that talks about motivation in online learning and how peers are a part of that. So what I found is that curiosity and perceptions of instructional quality and instructor presence have had positive correlations to student motivation. Dedicated, involved instructors that mediate conversations and lead the group in creative ways can motivate students. Timely course material and communication are also essential to success. Creating a challenging, student-driven environment that incorporates multiple delivery methods can positively impact engagement and motivation. Motivation may be partially predicted based on prior experience or interest with the subject matter. However, in my review, computer experience was not necessarily linked to motivation or online course success. Technology does have a role in motivation, and alternative methods are being explored to stimulate curiosity and learning methods to achieve increased knowledge. Some research tracked patterns in student activities through weblogs to gather information about trends. What they found is that students who often accessed gaming resources for learning were more intrinsically motivated to learn about the material. So we think about badges and creative ways to get students involved. At the other end of the spectrum were extrinsically motivated students who were the ones who frequently accessed the testing modules. So those are the extrinsically motivated students who are more involved with the testing and the grades, where the intrinsically motivated were more motivated to look at the materials and the gaming resources. There were some differences in motivation between men and women that were also observed. Students with high levels of prior experience in computers and technology tended to be men, and they were more active in online lessons. But they often possessed an elitist attitude and disregarded participation. So the men were less interested, found materials irrelevant, and therefore gave it minimal attention. The females benefited from new media methods more than the males. Participation was also less for students who were hesitant with computers and perhaps those who experienced computer anxiety. Unfortunately, that group includes mostly women. Results from this particular study suggest that all students can benefit from further computer courses and training, especially those who need some developmental and remedial assistance with technology. Students who had family and friend support and older students, I said some of this in the presentation, were more motivated, while independent learners were not more determined online students. This might be because they felt alone in their academic journey, and it's another reason why peer and instructor support in the class community are crucial. The value of education might be more appreciated by older students who have more life experience and have witnessed the worth of education, and they're more motivated and more likely to succeed. In all students, an air of confidence breeds positive results. So by creating a positive, encouraging atmosphere that balances independence and control with peer membership, that was found to be ideal. Community acceptance is going to foster participation, audience awareness, and asynchronous learning. One of the neat things that the research showed was avatars used to motivate students by providing positive encouragement and an outlet for frustration. So if you had an avatar that resembled you in age, ethnicity, gender, and competency, they were relatable, like a friend that came along on the journey with you, and they encouraged the student to reach their potential. When the self-efficacy increases, achievement follows and may even grow beyond their normal skill set. So this use of computer activities and avatars in online learning can increase confidence, intrinsic motivation, and performance. The best type of avatar was actually someone who was the ideal version of themselves. So reaching for the next level and being encouraging. So you think about gaming again with reaching for that next level. Okay, so that was a little bit of a research review that I had done that I thought you might find interesting as a sort of addendum. Thank you for listening, and I encourage you to consider some of these great ideas for having your peers work together in your classes.